Okay, the next one I'm going to read is a little longer. Nobody liked this story. um, that's my strongest endorsement for it. I wrote it quite a few years ago, and I have tried and tried and tried with it, and nobody likes it, so I'm saying so long to it by reading it to you, and I hope that you like it as much as I do. It's called Infinite Space. For a while, there is nothing. After the footfalls die away, after the faint thump of the front door closing, which you can only hear because the door is connected to the walls, connected to the floor, there is nothing. Just the sound of your breath going in and out, the sound of your heart. The long drought of the day stretches before you. You've entertained yourself in every hour since the beginning, but your song and dance routines are tired. There are only so many things one human can hold in her brain, and you have surely thought of them all after this long. You've sung all the songs you can remember, breaking on the high notes, the metal walls merciless against your voice. You've recited all the passages you know from movies you loved out there, and even made up some new lines to go in the blanks. You've invented stories about all manner of things, their quality poor at first, then peaking in complexity, all-day narratives, and now thin and absurd. It has started not to matter whether your soft shoe can squeeze any applause out of your audience. Your supply of metaphors has not waned, though. Your brain continues to innovate. This morning, along with this theater metaphor you're cooking, there's a short stack of pancakes with a cloud of whipped cream, crisp bacon eaten with your fingers, waffles with thick syrup cupped in tidy squares. Little tendrils of steam rise from this feast, served on a brown speckled diner plate, a meal you've eaten 100 times. You can smell it. The flavors gather on your tongue. When you open your eyes, there is still the dark, still the close walls. You're still in this box. You heard this thing about John Cage once, that he asked some Harvard guys to lock him in a completely soundproof room. After hours in there, he emerged, snide. He said it couldn't have been soundproof because he'd heard a high sound and a low sound. Upon his describing the texture of these noises, an expert had told him he'd heard his circulatory system and his nervous system. Yes, that was a soundproof room, Mr. Cage. You thought this story was fascinating the first time you heard it, but it's a trinket you take out most days while you sit here against the metal wall in the dark, and it's lost its sparkle. You can hear the high sound and the low sound, too. It's what you hear after some minutes tick by, maybe a stretch as long as half an hour, after the last sound connected to the house drains from your senses. You don't want to die here, but it's starting to seem unlikely that you can outfox or overperform for the scientist, so he'll let you go. It's been too many dark desert days, too many blank returning gazes you've gotten in response to abject pleading, to calm logic, to warnings of consequences. He does not care about consequences. He cares only about the integrity of the experiments, ensuring that no stray variables creep into his data. That is why you cannot leave, he has told you patiently. There are too many variables to be introduced outside of the box. The first question he posited was how long it would take you to go insane from full lone dark or near dark all day long. You did not go insane. He did not get angry. He tried something else. He is a scientist. He tried repetitive sounds, dripping water on the steel ceiling above you, a dog he must have kidnapped or rescued that he somehow made to bark for hour upon hour, a skipping record. This last was the worst. It was something that needed fixing, which you could not in any possibility fix. You cried for those 3 days, hysterical by the time he returned on the evening of the third day. On that evening you begged for the first time, snot on your face, your fingers pruned with tears. He adjusted his round, rimless glasses and wrote a note on a pad that was invisible to you. You could hear his pencil scratching, but you did not know if the paper was yellow or white. He tried fear next. You were not afraid of the rat. You talked to it and petted its soft fur. It reminded you that there were things in the pattern of the world not made of steel or your own flesh. He took it away and gave you a spider, which was not so scary either. It was slow-moving and left you to yourself. You talked to it, too, but found it harder to speak back in the spider's voice. The rat had a personality, but the spider hung there without a hint to itself. After that was a snake, and you were very much afraid of it, but you knew from the markings you saw as it slithered out of his hands that it was not poisonous, so you stayed on your end of the box and moved slowly when it moved. You talked to it in a low, vibrating voice, touching the sides of the box so it could feel your vocal cords moving. Its leavings were watery and foul. You were much more afraid of what he might do. He might dump a bucket of cockroaches through the square hole in the side of the box. He might drag you from the box and rape you and strangle the breath from you. Although you doubt this, he seems too clinical to concern himself with such things. He might not come back at all one day. For the moment, he has chosen another experiment. He has been giving you less and less to chew and swallow each morning and night, and he has given you a plastic measuring tape and asked you to tell him the circumference of your waist, thighs, biceps. He has inquired after your health. He has given you dwindling amounts of water and requested that you describe your thirst. You see nothing on the other side of him when he opens the hole in the side of the box, only a gray concrete wall. There's a lamp or a bare bulb somewhere casting faint indirect light into the box during the day, but what or where it might be is a mystery. You wonder if he has an actual laboratory set up, if he has a metal tree on which to hang a white lab coat, if there's a desk, a Bunsen burner, bubbling flasks, a Tesla coil, or if it's just him and his methods, a barren cement hole filled with the experiment of you and his cataloging of it. You summon up life out there beyond the box as something bright and smeared with color, a moving carnival stuffed with innumerable people, many more than your captor and yourself. You were in college, failing chemistry, but reading wonderful books by authors who were still alive. You recall being in the middle of a book about mothers and daughters that you thought was overwrought, but it itches at your brain that you don't know how the story ended. Things were not happening as you expected them to happen. The world was proving deaf to your efforts to be heard, bless you. The future seemed small, bound on all sides, curved and unyielding like the inside of a walnut. You do not now know what it was you wanted, whether your vision of the world was too big or your capacity to see was too small. It is unclear. The sides of the box are invisible with the square hole closed. There is no ticking clock, no way to measure the passage of time, but you know from the description of your thirst you would give him, were he here, that it's been several hours since he left, since you thought of those waffles. He will return in the late afternoon, presumably after a day's work somewhere, and he will cook dinner and you will smell it. He will give you some bread and some water, and there will be some conversation about the state of you. And then he will close the square hole, and there will be nothing until the following morning. You are singing an old song, a campfire song, and your mind is accompanying you with a banjo. I've been working on the railroad. Your mind reels back, not to Girl Scouts like you'd expect, but to 7th grade. Mr. Bateman. It's not the first time you conjured him up to keep you company, and you don't know why the old song brought him around for a visit, but you welcome him back to the theater. He was one of those special teachers, the ones who are neither jaded, nor bored, nor secretly certain they'd chosen the wrong career. No. Mr. Bateman was fired up. Come on, kids, get fired up! About being laden with 7th graders onto retirement. He taught language arts, and occasionally he'd present the class with a logic problem that you had to figure out using the words given to you as clues. This particular day in your mind, it's the Harry and Grace problem, the one that you later watched Spencer Tracy present to Katharine Hepburn in Desk Set. Harry and Grace are found by a detective on the apartment floor, dead, surrounded by water and broken glass. The detective concludes with lightning speed that Harry and Grace died of suffocation. How could he have figured it out so quickly? 12-year-old minds buzz away at the problem, no one speaking, and Mr. Bateman says, he urges, think outside the box, folks. Folks is a word that makes you shudder in an educational context, but his directive echoes in the metal surrounding you. Think outside the box. That's all you can do right now. All you can manage is to think. Think of out there, of the limitless possibilities that any unconfined, larger than 6 by 6 by 6 space presents. Of music not produced by your parched throat, of sights not imaginary, of air not stale and stinking of unwashed you. There is only inside the box, and only outside the box. Your world is bound in this metal shell for the moment, but there is infinite space inside your skull. And you believe that there is space outside, too, where there is enough to eat and drink and laugh about, and you are not subject to the whims of someone with such a blank gaze. There is a grander experiment out there. You do not believe that this situation will be stronger than you, that your vision will be forever narrowed to this fine black point. Yet your hunger and thirst burn within you, and you wander down along a track that your train of thought has traveled before, a desolate railway through an endless Mojave. If this experiment is the last one, if he is fed up with your sanity, if he is ready for a weaker subject to lean against the metal walls and sing to herself all the livelong day. They were goldfish, was the answer, or rare tropical fish in Katharine Hepburn's case. Fish dying outside their tank, a cat licking its lips nearby, ready to pounce. There is no logical solution to the box, though. There is no thinking outside of it for the answer that interlocks all clues. No grabbing his arm through the tiny square hole and banging his head and climbing out. It's too small, and you can't reach the padlock that secures the larger door. No tricking him into letting you out. He truly does not care about you. No calling for help. Wherever you are is as soundproof as that Harvard room. He made sure you knew that. It is a box, and you are inside it. You are leaning, you are singing. Your voice is weak and bad, worse even than before, sizzling with thirst. It has been so many hours since the last sip of water before he left and took his footsteps away from you. The black point is fading to gray, and now to white. And now there are voices, more voices than just his. Something is different. Something in the shell of your mind has cracked. You are too weak to move, to think very hard, to do anything but murmur your song. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. It's the beginning of the next verse. Someone is shouting, and there are blurry shapes, and it's all so white, so white.